My mom told me not to talk to strangers on the internet, but I'm glad I didn't listen. We are the Certified Noonas, your sisters in the love of Asian entertainment.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
I'm Jessie.
I'm Natalia.
And I'm Sky.
And we're back, baby. Hey, yo.
Again.
We had a week off due to illness, but we're back. Guess who's back? Back again. Anyway, we're gonna start right away. We're doing this week. If obviously you click the title, so you know what we're going to talk about. This was what we were supposed to record last week, but your girl was dying, so we didn't. So we're a little late, but it was supposed to be earlier. But we were very excited to bring you our discussion of The Silent Sea. Pre-warning, we will be going into spoilers, but we will make a little note as to when the spoilers begin. But the smart thing to do would be to go watch the show and then come back and listen if
it might make more sense.
Don't want to be spoiled on any details of the show. If you were never planning on watching the show and don't care, keep going. If you've already watched the show and just want to hear our takes on it, keep going. So that is the warning you get. This will have spoilers in it, so don't get upset with us.
And Jessie's going to be taking the lead.
Yeah, Jessie, take it away.
Okay, so first I'm going to just talk about like the drama itself. So The Silent Sea is a sci-fi thriller with like a sprinkle of horror. It's labeled as horror,
yeah.
But it's not. It's
really not.
It's more of a thriller. It's more of a sci-fi thriller, if we're like being honest with ourselves. It premiered on Christmas Eve on Netflix. It was very, very much a drama that we all wanted to watch. Like I've personally had it on my list since they announced it like 2 years ago, and so it was a big thing. It's an adaptation of the 2014 short film by Chae Hong-young called The Sea of Tranquility. I personally went on a hunt and I can't find it.
Dang.
And not anywhere.
The one place that I did find any mention of it was that it used to be on YouTube and then it was scrubbed from the internet when Netflix picked up the show. So I think Netflix went on
because prior to The Silent Sea, like I never watched it. I knew it existed. Yeah. Like whenever we read about like it being connected, I was like, I've heard of it before. Yeah. So that's crazy that something I heard weird, of like is gone.
Too is that when I first started watching it, and like I watched an episode or two, and then I had to take a break, and then I watched the rest of it. But I remember seeing on YouTube a bunch of videos. Like there's still a bunch of videos that are like the ending explained, but there were half a dozen or so that were the ending compared to The Sea of Tranquility. The ending explained because of, and those videos are gone through
somewhere. Like or the people who like obviously like 2014 is not that long ago, especially as like a online streaming thing. It probably made its rounds in the sci-fi thriller community. That's what I would assume happened, and so like they all had already seen it so they could compare it to more. But as of the recording of this episode, it is non-existent to us, so we can't like give any like comparison.
I tried to go back and find those videos that I had seen before once I had watched the ending, so that I could see, and they were gone. Like
just
I was like
copyright claims on all of them. I bet you anything. Anyways, so Chae Hong-young, who directed and wrote the short film, he came back as the director for this, but the official written person who the show is written by is Park Eun-kyo, who previously worked on the Bong Joon-ho crime thriller drama Mother, which is a fantastic movie. If you haven't watched it, I watched it on Hulu. I'm pretty sure it's still on Hulu, and I think it might be even free on Tubi right now streaming. But like if you get a chance and you're into like very heavy dramas about it, there is a murder involved and that sort of thing, but it's won a bunch of awards. It was really great. Chae, this is his only credits to his name that I can find. So this is like
for TV.
For it. Basic plot of the drama is that it's set in a future where the planet is being affected by the lack of water as a like renewable resource. And so in an attempt to source water and basically to win the race on countries who find the water the quickest. A crew is sent to a space station on the moon for a 24-hour mission just to collect samples from the space station that the crew that had been working there had been working on. 5 years prior, the crew mysteriously died. Nobody knew, but nobody has the resources to like figure out these things. So like literally their only mission for this trip is to grab the samples and leave. But of course, when they arrive, things happen and you figure out things. So definitely, it can never be an easy trip.
That wouldn't be a show if it was just like they got there, they got the samples.
Why would it be a thriller if that's it? Like,
yeah.
Well, it's on the moon too. It's not like it was like a long journey,
And definitely when you're doing space travel stuff, it's always like things will go wrong because there's so many things that could go wrong.
It's so easy to.
Yeah, it's the story. You need, this isn't a slice of life drama about
no.
That would be so fun though.
And I will say that like there was a lot of debate online. This really is it's a 24-hour mission. It's only supposed to be 24 hours. It's a short time. It's literally kind of focusing in on this 24 hour. It's not even a 24-hour period that we see, but like it's literally the show is on this like kind of couple of hours at the space station. What happened, maybe possibly finding discoveries along the way.
It's like 12, like imagine 12 hours. It's a 12-hour-ish chunk of time.
Yeah,
that they spend on this space.
I don't think that it's exactly the length of the series, but it's close to the length of the series. So take whatever the running time is for the series. That's kind of like how long of the journey we actually see. So it's actually not very much of anything in the kind of grand scheme of things. The thing that makes this drama really big is its big stars. Like it's got a huge cast. So first we have Bae-doona, who we all love. She plays
our girl,
Dr. Song Ji-an, and she's kind of the main scientist in charge of this mission in terms of collecting the samples because she is the most closely into it because she's been like studying it. Also, her sister was part of the crew that was originally there. So she does have like the most knowledge, and essentially she's just there also as to tell everybody what to do, and then they help her, right? So then you have Gong Yoo as Captain Han Yoon Jae.
Looking
very
just
stoic,
Dilfy as hell.
Yes, I mean, like, but
with the neck tattoo,
with the sick neck tat. Oh, love
so
it,
nice,
love it,
so nice. And then we have Natalia's absolute favorite.
Oh, my boy,
her
my
little
sweet
bee.
baby, my sweet baby. as the engineer.
Yeah, he's Lieutenant Roo Tae-suk. And then also I would classify in the kind of the main cast, even though she's technically not classified as this, but I think she is, Kim Sun-young as Dr. Han Ga-young. She's the other kind of like scientist on board, but she is very clearly the medic. So she's like essentially like the paramedic doctor on board that you would always have as like a part of these trips.
You have to have a Dr. McCoy. It's the way things.
Well, yeah, I feel like you have to no matter what. Like
it's your basic. They got your basic setup.
You always have to have like a
mission
first aid person.
You've got the scientist. You've got the engineer. You've got the doctor. Yeah. You've got like the security dude. And you've got like the red shirts. We
all know that when you take a trip to the moon, something's gonna go wrong. They know it too.
This is just standard fare.
I will say that like it's very much like there's not a lot of hope in the world right at this point in time that we're seeing.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of we're just doing things like, and it could be it and it could not be it. I don't think there's a lot of hope in anything that anybody's doing, nor is there a lot of hope for like life to extend past a couple of years. So that is a theme that kind of like weighs heavily on everyone in this cast and the crew and kind of just like who's on Earth. Some other casts that I wanted to mention, the cast is pretty huge. There are people like Lee Moo-sang, who was just recently in The World of the Married. Lee Sung-wook, who, if you've watched Where Stars Land, he's the main security officer in that. And he's been on a bunch of other stuff too. And then our girl who we love to hate and who's so good at being so evil, Kil Hae-yeon, who you know as the
Mhm.
mother from Something in the
Oh.
Rain, and always when she pops up,
She's
you're like,
a
ugh,
delight.
or I just heard it through the grapevine. She's great in that. And then another notable person is Ho Sun-tae, who is in Squid Game. He was the, antagonist, like bully guy. He's in it for very little, so don't go into this drama kind of wanting that.
That's the only thing you're in for. He is a tertiary character. Okay?
Yes. Yes.
I also really liked seeing Jung Soon Won in it as one of the red shirts. He was recently in Secret Royal Inspector and Joy. He played one of the unsavory characters on that. He's a delight.
There is
He's
like
great.
this cast, even though we spend most of our time with the crew, the small crew that's on the mission, there are a couple of other people, and there's like parts where you see a bunch of people too. So there's a lot of like extras in this. So chances are you've seen a lot of these people in your favorite K-dramas as well. So that's kind of like the basic plot and premise of the story, and kind of like set you up on like what type of show it is. I think especially with this drama, since I've seen it be so decisive on the timeline and just in general, I think it would be interesting for, as like a part of our non-spoiler talk, we kind of briefly like go over like thoughts and opinions or like feelings on the show in general, kind of in like if you were a person who maybe was on the fence because you heard all the stuff that like maybe you don't want to see it, or maybe you're someone who hasn't watched it yet and you put it on the back burner, but you want to know if you should move it up on your watch list, kind of like frame it on that. So like very non-spoiler.
Okay.
And then after this section, we can go free for all, talk about whatever we want, like random timeline stuff. Yeah.
So I watched it with my husband. And while I was watching it, and I think I even told Sky and Jessie this, the first thing that came to my mind was when I was younger, my favorite author was Michael Crichton. And I had two favorite books by Michael Crichton. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking she loved Jurassic Park. And I did. But no, my two favorite books by Michael Crichton were Sphere and The Andromeda Strain. So Sphere is about like a mysterious sphere from space that a bunch of scientists have to investigate, and then weird stuff happens. And then the Andromeda Strain is about a mysterious space virus comes to Earth and scientists have to investigate. Like, it's very similar setup. And while I was watching this, all I could think was, if Michael Crichton was still alive, he would have written this. Like, this would have been something that Michael Crichton would have written, a story that is very much on the vein of his books. So if you enjoy his sort of style of writing, you would probably really enjoy this.
I very much agree. I didn't pick it up when I watched it, but when Natalia said something, I was like, oh, and it just like clicked in my head. It was like, this is it. This is, yes, this, if you like that, then you would like this.
This is the vibe, is like scientific thriller is, his, with like an edge of like the fantastic, like, because with his stuff, it's like, it never really explains everything, but that's okay, because not everyone knows everything. He also wrote Westworld, so like, he's been like the original Westworld. Also, fun fact about him, in all of his books, is in the little author bio on the back page, it would also say Michael Crichton, and then in brackets, rhymes with frighten. And I always found that really quite clever. He actually, so Westworld was originally like a movie in the 70s that he wrote, and then HBO adapted it. So that's kind of fun. He was sort of ahead of his time with his science fiction, let's just say. But yeah, so like, if you like Michael Crichton books, you'll probably really like this show.
So I'll give my opinion as a somewhat stereotypical scaredy cat person. Though I'm improving a bit, but I'm just saying. She's
getting brave. She's getting brave. We need to applaud her. Branching out with bravery.
Like, so if you're concerned to encounter this from like am I going to be terrified level? I mean, it is not for everybody. So if you can handle, to me, it's squarely for the like sci-fi audience. This is not, this is not sci-fi light. since I've always been a sci-fi fan, I'm very used to. If you can handle The Expanse, you are fine. Like, Expanse is heavier in my opinion. So like, if you're pretty much a deep sci-fi fan, you're unless you're only used to just the first version of Star Trek, like you're gonna probably be fine.
Yeah. For sure.
But that's because sci-fi, sci-fi, there's a lot of spectrum to sci-fi. You have the light stuff, and you have the super dark, where it does toe the line of horror like a lot more, right? This isn't super dark, but it's further down in that spectrum a little bit. It is a little bit deeper. So even with sci-fi books, you get the 1,000-pagers that are going to break down every bit of science for you, for the people that are just wanting every single detail. This isn't that.
Yeah, it will not hand you anything.
No. This is you're accepting what you're seeing. It's definitely like, you don't have a narrator telling you all the secrets. You see what you get. Like,
you have to read. Yeah. There's a little bit of reading between the lines, making connections. It's not going to lay it all out for you, but like it all makes sense in the internal logic of the show. It all makes sense.
So to me, if you can handle kind of a little bit darker sci-fi, you're going to be fine. And if you can handle the Reaver episode of Firefly,
that's what I was going to say. Yeah. If you've watched Firefly, you're probably good. You're fine.
Yeah, there is a little bit.
If you can't handle it's probably not for you, and that's totally fine.
Yeah,
there is a little bit, not too much, but there is a little bit of gore, not like excessive in any stretch of the imagination. Like if I was watching this with like my 14-year-old cousin, I wouldn't have any worries.
No, I tried to talk my 15-year-old into watching it with me, and he just wasn't in the mood. So.
And kind of a lot of
I would have had no problem
gore
watching it with him.
Not seen in a way that I'm not going to tell you about right now because it's a spoiler. But like it's like in darkness. They really
So it's like it's not like Kill Bill, like blood spurting everywhere, like body parts flying. Like no, it's tasteful.
I mean, I would say to some extent. I mean, some of it is violence based, but it's kind of the same level of gore you would see in most like medical dramas or something. Like it's that kind of level of gore. Like I was watching Ghost Doctor, and it's kind of like same level.
Like you've seen worse on an episode of CSI. You know what I mean? Like
so
it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
I think for me, I started out and it moves slow in the beginning, like not the very, very beginning. It's got a real action-packed first like 5 minutes, and then it kind of moves slow for the next like 2 or 3 episodes. And I get that they're kind of trying to build tension and stuff. For me, it didn't do that. I was just bored, but I just was doing it for this, and I liked the idea. I wanted to get to the point. I wanted to know what the story was. I sort of hit a point where I was like, I don't really want to watch this, but I want to know what the story is. So I'll keep watching it because I want to know what the story is.
So I guess that means you do want to watch it.
I mean, at one point I was watching it at like 1.25 speed, and it wasn't making any difference. It obviously was making a difference, but like that things move slowly when they're kind of like when they're on Earth and stuff, when they're showing those parts, things move slowly. And it wasn't working for me. But once you hit about episode 4, things pick up, and I really enjoyed the second half a lot. So I will say that for some people, if you're kind of feeling like this isn't really me, you might want to stick with it and push through. But for me, I remember saying back when we were talking about stuff we were looking forward to and stuff, I compared like the teasers and the posters and stuff to The Abyss, which is underwater, like it's not the moon, it's deep sea, but it really kind of vibe wise had a very similar concept of like going somewhere that we don't go and finding things you weren't expecting to find, like it's that kind of a vibe to me.
That is very much the vibe, The Abyss, like that.
So
I agree.
Once I got through the first maybe 3 episodes or so, I really quite enjoyed the rest of it. I was concerned because I was like, okay, can I watch this at night after the kids go to bed, because we're on lockdown and the kids never leave, and it was like, yeah, you'll be fine.
I think
you'll be fine.
basically
You can watch this at night. And I could watch it at night. It wasn't an
episode.
issue.
Like, I even remember very clearly, I watched, like, I think it was the second episode. I was like, Sky, maybe you want to not do this at night, and then immediately change my mind. Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
We good.
No, it was.
Yeah, there's not like too many like jump scare type things. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not.
No, it's.
I could watch
very
this with
much
my mom
sci-fi.
And she'd be fine. Yeah. And my
it's
mom
very
cannot handle.
If you're
one thing I do want to say, after experiencing something like Jury-san, it does not have 5 billion red herrings. Like,
that's true.
No,
you eventually kind of vaguely know a little bit of what's up. Once they don't keep it until the last 5 minutes or anything. Like,
there's really not any red herrings. Like,
which I appreciate. I appreciate not being, especially for a short. It felt tight to me eventually. Like, I do understand the setup could be a little slow and stuff, but once they got going, there wasn't a spare moment. There was a lot of stuff.
And what I sort of liked about it is, like, the setup. It has like a classic MacGuffin setup. If you're unfamiliar with what a MacGuffin is, it's basically an item that everyone's looking for, but the item doesn't really matter. But that's not the case in here. This is not a MacGuffin. You feel like it's gonna be, but it's very central to everything happening. It's. I really enjoyed it.
So for me, this is like my type of sci-fi thriller, because I am a huge slow burn fan, and I thought that like it actually really did well with the slow burn. I also like when projects don't try to explain everything to you, because nobody who's a character would know all these information anyways, and B, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't need to know the setup of every like scientific thing, because it doesn't matter. And also, if you were actually going to like tell me it correctly, I wouldn't understand it either, because I'm not a rocket scientist. You know? I don't need all that. And I thought that like the show gave that to me. I didn't spend time on unnecessary things. Its mission was to focus on this 24-hour mission, and it did that with giving us like a sprinkle of what was going on, just to kind of get into the world and kind of see where we're at. I thought that, like, in terms of it being kind of realistic in that, I don't know what year it's actually supposed to be, but it's like fairly close by. It's within 100 years, right? And I felt that like the drama really kind of centers itself into a very realistic thing on where Korea would be as a space country, because they're not, and so it was very realistic in that. So they would be the underdogs. They would be the people who don't know how to do things or aren't as grand as everything. I think just like those combination of stuff just like really led for a kind of a really great binge for me. I personally watched it the night of Christmas Eve and didn't stop. I watched the entire thing in one sitting, and it was like later at night because that's when I could get to it, but I enjoyed it. I thought that like because of that, I would like got into like the really great things about thrillers where it like kind of like pulsate, and that's what it kind of does. And it works really well because you get the silent stuff, but also you're all alone on the moon too, and so it like led you to have that kind of feeling of being where they were, and also the like helping you with your thriller content and kind of like going up and down and stuff.
And I binged it as well. I didn't do it that night or anything, but I did binge it. I don't think it was one sitting, but it was the one day.
It was one sitting for me.
It's fairly short. What is it? 8 episodes. Most of them are about like 40 minutes
45
long, I think.
minutes.
They're not real long episodes.
Intro and outro is fairly long. Obviously, it's very
beautiful intro and outro. Like just
gorgeous.
Listen, who that? Whatever artist was doing that, you do. The Netflix shows have just the most beautiful intros.
They really do.
Like Chef's Kiss. I'm a big fan of.
So do we have anything else that we want to say that's like non-spoiler before we get into the spoiler section?
I will say, probably if you're not used to sci-fi, it really might not be your cup of tea. Now, if you haven't tried sci-fi before, just it's going to be very uncharted territory for you, and you can give it a shot. That's fine too. But if you're really about sci-fi and you've tried it and it's really not your bag, it really might not.
That's okay.
I will say that what I noticed on this, it was the first of the like K-drama offerings that we got that actually started to stray away from the formulaic K-drama plot. And kind of, you know how there's like things that carry along in most K-dramas because there are tropes that just are like really big and can be used in the multiple amounts of genres that there are, right? This one kind of shied away from it more than any of the other kind of like Netflix produced things like Hellbound and Squid Games still felt K-drama to me, and this started to feel really like someone was trying to do a sci-fi thriller.
Yeah.
Well, I say give it a shot if you think you can handle it, but it's totally cool if it's not your thing.
And now
spoilers.
Here's my first spoiler. And I think it's very important that we all say this. There is no romance in this. Do not go looking for romance.
There is not. They never
promised
there is not.
Like, Jesus, the amount of people who were upset that there wasn't any. There wasn't any.
Or, who weren't upset that there wasn't any because they were making it up in their minds. Oh, look at the look in her eye. She's so, and I'm like,
no, it's just,
most of them couldn't even figure out that it was like 24-hour mission. They thought it was like longer than that too. So
yeah, I'm like, she just met this
just
guy.
watch the
like,
show.
no, just stop.
Now, if you feel led by the spirit to go write a fanfic,
this is why fanfics
That's why fan fiction exists. Go to town. We encourage your creative outlet for things that, like, you know, listen, you want to go write, you know, Dr. Song, Captain Han, like, you know, Lieutenant Ryu, love triangle. You do you, boo boo. Like, you go.
Yeah, go.
I'll read it. I'll beta read it for you. You know, but like,
tis not canon.
Just be aware.
It's wishful thinking.
And we're not talking just not, you know, Bae Doona and Gong Yu. There's no romance. There's not anywhere. Nobody. There's no. It's 24
They don't get
hours.
a lot of time to even like have like personal connections.
They don't even have a meal. Like you know, they're busy.
Everybody doesn't really know each other.
For that.
Like most of the people don't know each other. They were literally just like plucked by the government at random to go onto this ship. They needed those roles because you have to have those roles to successfully get a spaceship up there. And then they also needed, you know, manpower to get all the samples because Bae Doona wasn't gonna like carry it all herself in this 24-hour mission. So it was just
this is like your standard sci-fi crew who they've been put together for a mission, maybe, and a few of them have been like on missions together before, so you can tell that some of them are friends, but that it.
Yeah.
By the way, about the samples, like, so whenever they were, you know, setting up, explaining what they were going to do and coming up with the mission and stuff, I was really picturing like ones, because they did talk about their kind of these different places they were going to need to look for these samples, right?
Yeah.
And so I was really picturing that each place only had one sample like stashed away somewhere, like in a treasure box or, you know, just really, I really thought there was one. And so then when it came to like, you know, when you get to the places that have samples, like, oh, that was a lot of samples.
Yeah, it's solidly gonna take all 24 hours. You're like, oh,
this timeline makes more sense now.
Right? I thought there was like one sample and there was 3 locations that it might be at, so you have to check all 3. And I was like, okay, cool. And then they walk in and it's like,
oh, that's a lot.
Like,
and I think the problem with that was that they hinted kind of like heavily towards this, the scientists were kind of going rogue, but like they were also still, the Korean government was not caring. They just wanted to be the first to get samples, right? They wanted to be the one who won this water race, essentially. So I think that like a lot of the like information just wasn't there because the scientists were purposely not going and telling everybody, so it wasn't in things, and then probably also like the higher ups were kind of hiding like records and that sort of thing. So like Bae Doona's character, who would be the one who would be able to figure that out, she doesn't have that information because it's kind of been hidden by the government.
Can you imagine how difficult it was for these characters to, like, for instance, Bayduna's character early on was pretty much like, they're not telling us something. They're literally not telling, even before they were leaving
from the get-go.
She was like, they're not telling us something. But then probably then thinking about, like, of course, curious about our sister, but also like the whole, we really do need water, and this is a big, like, you can imagine all the inner turmoil these characters had of, like, this is important, we really should go do this, but
I mean, they're kind of at like they have to do it no matter what. Your option is literally to die of like dehydration because there's literally no water. Like we see at one point in the show where the like mains are busting and stuff, and it's like that's like something that's, you can't even do that, and people are getting rationed out this water. Bayduna is the main character of this show. They don't to like kind of like make that known and things, but she is the main person. And if you are here in the spoiler section and not knowing, we will go kind of non-timeline-esque because that's what we normally do, but to kind of have a backstory. Bayduna's character is a scientist, and her sister was part of the original moon mission. She loved her sister. She looked up to her sister. She thought her sister was like this most amazing human being, like perfect in every way. And so she's like got this really great image of her sister, the scientist. And so when her sister dies and she's still doing the same work, it's like it has like taken a toll on her because she wants the answers to her sister's death, but also she's not getting it. And she still has to do kind of all the stuff. So essentially she got onto this crew as a way to try to like figure out what happened to her sister. None of the crew knew in the beginning that she had, because
they were all told that all of these scientists had died in an accident.
Just an accident.
Like radiation
a radiation leak, and they all died of radiation poisoning, which is why no one had ever gone back to the moon base.
And it's very clearly like the way that they wouldn't have had money and time to go back to it anyway. So like there was no like option to. Of course, their option was to leave all the bodies there. Like this world is that type of world. We're in a destitute place.
I did like how they set up showing the lack of water and stuff, though. I did like how they showed the different cards and rankings of how much water you get and stuff, because we all know that's exactly how it would go down.
Exactly.
Capitalism.
Absolutely.
Late stage capitalism right there.
I liked too the way it was filmed, that like all the on Earth stuff had the like the golden and the red tones and the filters and stuff to show that it's like it's dry down here. But then like dry, the moon is also dry theoretically, but it's cool tones and it's whites and colds
cold and empty.
So it's neat the way they used lighting and filters to make it really contrast.
It was beautifully filmed.
It was very nice we've talked about this before too, when shows do like flashbacks and you're like don't realize until you're halfway through that like you're in a flashback now. You always knew you were in a flashback because the color was completely different. Like it was like, this is a flashback. And also they weren't wearing spacesuits, but
And one of the things that I didn't talk about in the non-spoiler section about the like kind of undulating thriller aspect that the show inherently has, I think it like mirrored the buoyancy of water in a way. And so it was like up and down. And I really love some of the cinematography they would do when they find like it's kind of like figured out that like there's some sort of like virus or whatever in the water samples, and when it like enters a person, they literally are drowning because they just shoot out water nonstop. And a lot of the times,
basically, I don't think we've said this for anyone who hasn't seen the show and doesn't plan to and is just listening. They find moon water is what the samples are, and the moon water, when it touches, like gets into a person, multiplies itself.
to the point where it's literally drowning the human being, and you see like parts where they're literally, it's a stream of like a faucet of water coming out of them, and
vomiting
when
water,
they're like dying, they do this really great cinematography thing where they're in underwater and it's like very silent and they're just floating, and I thought that like those representations of kind of like their death, you know, that they're like suffering, and the contrast of it being so peaceful and stuff, it's just it really worked well for me, and kind of like the visual aspect of everything that was going on.
I also really liked how when they would first start to show the signs of it, and they personally would first start to realize it, you would sort of see through their eyes, and it was like they were seeing things through water, like they started to see, like their eyeballs were filling up with water, even like to that level where they started looking at people and were like, what's going on? And once they knew what it was, they knew. But that was a neat effect too.
Going back to Bae Doona's character, I think one of the parts that I really liked about her arc, and this kind of goes into the next kind of big spoiler, is the Luna character. I liked that we actually got to see kind of this rise and fall of her sister, because she kind of like has put her sister on this pedestal, and she thinks that they're the most amazing and they're the greatest and wonderful, and she was like doing everything really great and wonderful. And when she finds the Luna character, who is kind of an alien that they the previous scientists had been cloning and working on for this water
genetically engineered clone situation.
And that was the breaking point for Bae Doona's character, because she actually started to realize that her sister was doing inhumane things for the sake of this thing. And it was kind of this like point in contention with her, because they need the water, they're going to die, like they're very close to death. It was like really interesting to see, because like a lot of the flashbacks you had with Bae Doona's character were her and her sister, and just like her being so like enamored by her and stuff, and like to kind of see the rise and fall of like this like image that she's made of her sister, because she starts knowing the truth when she starts to be kind of close with the Luna character, who is played by Kim Shi-ah, who you may know as the young Ashen from the Kingdom Ashen of North.
That's right.
Yeah, she was 13 years old.
Phenomenal.
So good.
So good.
I mean, she was good in Ashen. She's good in this.
We can expect her to be.
She's also
K-drama
gorgeous.
star from now on.
She's like so cute. She's so
100% going to be a model. Let's just be real.
Yes, right. She's beautiful. Like gorgeous.
So good. So good at acting.
Some people get all the genetics. What can you say?
I know, right? But that was just like something that I thought was like really interesting to kind of tie into this show, because like there's so much going on. You could see that like there was this like breaking point in Bae Doona's character where she was like, actually, no, what my sister did was not what we should be doing, because we still should be human, even in our times of this like devastation of humanity. And the way that she starts to kind of bond with Luna, and like you can see like Luna changing too, and kind of being a help, because it essentially she could have been a help. Like those clones could have been a help, like no matter what. You didn't have to like keep on doing experiments and killing them. Like
right.
She's definitely the key for the survival. It doesn't take killing her to have that key.
Yeah.
Right. And I enjoyed how they didn't focus on the clone thing that much, because that wasn't the crux of what was going on. Right?
No.
It wasn't the ethical dilemma of should clones be a thing, blah, blah, blah. No, it was, if you make clones, don't inhumanely kill them repeatedly. Yeah. Like that's all.
If you make clones, treat them like people.
Like what they were actually doing, as opposed to what everybody just thought they were doing. Like, and so they didn't like, spend a lot of time with that. And it's kind of shown like in like a movie kind of form, and she kind of figures out, that's when she's also figuring out how her sister died and stuff, because obviously it's not just radiation.
Let's just say there wasn't radiation at all. Let's just put this down.
I mean, and they realized that like right away. Like they got on and they started finding bodies, and they're like, these people drowned on the moon and this is not radiation. Like right away they were like, yeah, and we should look into this because we're also walking around in here, and if there's something that can kill us, we should find out about that before it kills us.
I think there was also this kind of like knowledge of it shouldn't kill them even if they're there because it's been too long, because that's what they were probably told. And there's gotta be, because of the hopelessness of everything. I still think that like every character played hopeless. There was like not a lot of hope in this. So like you have that kind of like apathetic viewpoint of the world that like, if I die, I die. And I think that like a lot of that stemmed from a lot of the stuff that they were doing, because they were kind of like, what is there to do? Am I actually going to put on PPE and it be beneficial? No. Also, would it be beneficial in us watching a film with them covered the entire time?
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
Like just like I can see people when it's dark out. Like I can, see this, but like so I think there was just so much of that like weighing down on everything that like
even the Dr. Hong character, like if you had to pick a comic relief, which to me I wouldn't even call her comic relief, but she would be the only one that would even try to like.
She had the most personality.
Yeah, a moment of friendliness or a moment of lightness. She would try. Even that character was very hopeless. Like, I mean, she was definitely doing her job as best as she could and all those things, but
she was really trying to like maintain a level of hope, even though you didn't really believe she had it, but she kind of tried to
lighten the mood a little.
There. And then it's I thought that scene where she walked into the room full of clone corpses and just collapsed, that felt like the moment for her. It was like she was putting up with a lot, she was getting through a lot, but this I did not sign up for. This is not okay. It's not acceptable.
Because like the first time you meet her, it's just she like sidles over to like Dr. Song's character and is like, oh, I hope that like the dudes are hot on this mission, because like you gotta stare at their faces, so they might as well be good looking, am I right, ladies? And then the Bay Duna's character's like, what like what
are you even talking about?
And that's just sort of like, she's the vibe, right? Where she's just like, I'm just gonna, try to keep things, easy breezy, but things were not easy breezy.
No.
They were very hard, difficult.
What is the opposite of easy breezy? Hard,
difficult.
No breeze.
Also,
another used character always got the short end of the stick. What was I going to say?
He was just screwed. What I was going to say is there's also this, like, I always love when there's plots within plots, because the secondary plot of what's going on is that you find out that mercenaries have been hired by other governments to try to also get the samples. So the first body they find is like a Russian dude who's been dead for a while, and they're like, yeah, he didn't die of radiation. What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And then you very, very early on find out that the co-pilot of the mission, played by Choi Young-woo, who was excellent, is a mercenary. So, he, spoiler alert, he does not last that long. He gets what's coming to him, shall we?
Spoiler alert, most of the people don't last this long.
Yeah, there's red shirt is correct when we're talking about this drama, if you're familiar with Star Trek.
Well, this also kind of like plays nicely. We can kind of go into like Natalia's boy, Lee Jun's character, because he's one of the, like, I would say one of the bigger turns in the show. Comparatively, Luna's got a twist, but like I think like Lee Jun's character's twist is an arc is a little bit different, and I personally really liked it because I felt that it showcased PTSD really well, and the weight of what he had done.
Yeah, his weight of his own guilt and continuing to do things that he knows is wrong.
Also, the delay of that reveal. So, like, they didn't reveal him as far as being involved in the mercenary trader side of things. So that was delayed.
Like,
but then as far
into the show,
as far as the explaining essentially the PTSD aspect, like that was way delayed, and then
That's
it was
last
like,
episode.
oh,
Yeah.
It all, because like, you know, for the first half of the show, he seems like he is very on mission. He is very helpful. He is doing his best. He is helping everyone. He is not doing anything suspicious. Like, he is.
And then when he starts doing suspicious stuff, it's a lot of suspicious. It's big suspicious.
But it's only like suspicious to the audience because he's not doing it around anyone.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's true.
So the audience is like, ooh, sus. Imposter, report. But like, you can't because no one else is seeing him.
The poor character that had been hurt, and then
he gets like
just sit there and
discovered
pretend.
by E2.
But that's actually a good point. So Lee Jun's character was donating blood, for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like he wasn't being sneaky for a really long time.
He's one of those characters that like really was very mental problems, and it was making it so he was slipping in and out of like either a psychosis or something because of the PTSD and because the weight of like everything that he'd done, and like going there didn't help because it literally was him going back to where he slaughtered a bunch of people and seeing it. So like he may have been okay for the last couple of years in silence
because you could have told yourself
because
like,
he wasn't literally in the same building, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I think that was him just like kind of devolving, which I thought was a really great kind of like character, because it wasn't necessarily just some like all around evil person from the very beginning and was hiding. It was kind of like he was hiding because his mental state was allowing that hide, because he was still essentially an okay person. He just like had all this issue.
Sort of, it also like sort of contrasted him with the character of like the co-pilot, because you could tell the character of the co-pilot didn't give a shit about any of these people that he was with. Like he would have, you can all die. But, you know, Ryu Tae-suk, so Lee Jun's character, you could tell that he didn't actually want to hurt any of this crew. Like he would if he had to, but he was not going to like murder them to make his job easier, because literally just shooting them in the back of the head would have made his job, and he had many opportunities to like do so over, you know, he was alone with many characters. He could have very easily just killed them all, done his mission and gone home, but he didn't want to, which is why you get things like, you know, he's donating blood to this dude. He's basically like telling, like when he gets caught, he's like, I don't want, like, don't follow me, like we don't have to do this.
Well,
like,
I kind of also think that like he's kind of he got onto the mission as kind of more of like he wanted to kind of have a final like rest in this like whole saga of his life, so he didn't understand that it was going to spend like mentally take its toll on him. Like he also was kind of in there as more of like he wanted to see if there was enough evidence for them to figure it out, and kind of like there may have been a point in his character's time where he wanted them to figure out what they had done, so that he could finally share that like secret that he had locked up, and free him.
Because spoiler, he was a soldier, and they done locked the people in to die. They could they like shot a bunch of them and then sealed them in essentially to drown. They could have saved most of the people who worked on this, and
because you also start to see like you know a lot of the other characters, how the government is starting to like really kind of wrap its hands around, because they're very desperate to get what they need to keep living. You know, a lot of this is it's very evil things, but out of absolute desperation.
Which I think they also do a good job though of showing that probably like they're aware we need this, Earth needs this, but also probably whoever gets a hold of this is going to just keep the same things that are in place going. They're just going to have more they're
money.
Going to make more money, and they're going to make more water for them. Some people are still going to have all they need, and a lot of people are still going to die, right? Like they're not like, oh, we're going to get to just fix everything and it'll be fine, right? Like they know that's not how the world works.
Well, and also
Otherwise, why would the mercenaries be there? Like,
for the Dr. Song character, it's also the inherent risk of this thing that we haven't figured out completely, which has obviously killed X amount of people at this point. Should we even be taking that down? So not just the whole like capitalist bad aspect, but it's also like taking it to Earth. Are we death sentencing literally everybody by taking it back? So I thought those discussions, you know, those really short discussions, but those were really good questions for the characters to verbally bring up. And I felt it made the characters feel very realistic to me that they were having these, they're having to have these choices. It's like, we don't know. There's really no great answer right now.
I think their reaction on being kind of just left in the dark was really great. And I know that like a lot of people were so against how the drama didn't tell you anything and it didn't explain things, and they thought it should. I actually like wrote a blog post right after I watched it on like a small little review the thing, and I'm going to read what I said because I think this like kind of like accurately sums it up what I like am trying to express in the reasons why you don't get the answers. It's because the drama didn't set us up to believe that we were going to get all the answers, nor would it have been able to. In a way, it mirrored the character's journey in the drama. Their questions were left unanswered as well. Yunja spends most of the first part of the drama telling Jian to stop asking questions and keep on task to collect the samples. Answering questions was not why they were there, and the answers they do get are not the ones they want. And I think that's like the big thing that I think a lot of people are missing when they kind of watch this and they aren't giving they're not giving all these information, is that these people were left in the dark too. Like a lot of, they don't know. It's very
you
new.
only know what the characters know.
Nobody knows if this is actually going to work. They literally went to the moon not knowing if the power would turn on there, you know, like they were just kind of assumed it would, but they don't know. And I think that like these questions were really left unintentional because the basic plot of the show was to show this 24-hour mission and what happened there, and they give you a little bit to like whet like your curiosity, right? But in the end, it's about these couple of hours with these characters on the moon.
I do think there are some areas where they could have made some of the things they were doing more clear. Like I had to rewind and rewatch about 3 times the very end because I was like, I didn't feel that they did a very good job making me understand why Gong Yu had to go through the door. Like why he had to be on the other side. It was like, did I miss it? Like, are they short of an oxygen pack? Are they, and no, okay, wait, did they, like, it just, it was like, and then I watched something, it was like, oh, okay, the door has to be shut from the outside. But like, it didn't feel like I had to infer like, that. I don't think they really I got that immediately,
but like, I've watched enough sci-fi to know.
I have too, but
that
like,
door's gonna jam.
That didn't.
You know
it was like he's standing with a guy who dies, and then it's like it almost felt more like he was. What they were saying was he was committing suicide. Like this guy's dead, and I
saw
no
it
will.
as
you know,
a pure going down with the ship,
like,
and he knew that if he stayed there was a chance for the others to survive, and there wasn't very much chance if he didn't. Right. So he had to be that way. Like he had to do what he did at that moment. Like there was no other option.
I think it's the kind of thing that like, like when I kind of got like, eventually I was like, yeah, okay, I think this is what they were trying to go for. But I didn't feel like there were times in the show where I felt like, not that I needed them to explain it to me better, but I think they could have been clearer in what they were trying to say, because there were some spots that felt to me like plot holes, which got filled in sometimes, but a lot of it I feel like I'm filling it in myself. And I think for a lot of people, I understand why they would have frustration with that. I enjoyed it, and I watch a ton of sci-fi, and I get the tropes and I get the things. I think there were some aspects of the storytelling that could have been better. I think it's a great story. I didn't always love the way it was told, but that's you know,
it's fair, but I get it. But like, just as you wanting like a more developed thing, on the flip side, you can also have something that doesn't tell you anything too. And it's, you know, like this So it's what they wanted to do, essentially. They wanted it to be kind of
now I only had one sort of thing that I needed to figure out, and I literally had to pause and like be like, honey, like, so, and that was, which I personally, this was my favorite character. I know I love Lee Jun, he's my favorite actor. My favorite character was the security chief guy, who, boy, he goes on a wild ride of emotions. So my big thing was, so the second guy to die on this mission. There's a lot of dudes die. Okay. So the second guy to die is his brother. So it's him and his brother are both working on this thing. But I didn't actually realize they were brothers. So I was I
struggled with that too. I was like, I didn't pick
that
up.
I was like, okay, are they like best friends?
Are they lovers? If it's just because of
related?
Like translation, and also, you know, like everybody calls everybody young, like, you know, really.
Yeah. So I was like, so what is their why is he so upset? Like, you know, because he's a very
fairly stoic.
Yeah. And so I was like, why is he? So I was like, are they like lovers? And I just like missed something, because like it had like a real like, my husband just died, but I have to keep everyone else safe vibe. No, they were brothers, guys. I solved the mystery. They were brothers. Actual brothers. And
that is one of those things that I was wondering, like, maybe that was just a English subtitle, me not knowing.
It's just not enough, like, to give you anything.
But listen, that character of the security chief is the most like compelling character on this thing. That guy goes through it. He is the most on mission person. Like, every time you think he's about to like give in to just despair, he's like, no, professional face. We're gonna keep this shit going. My job is to keep as many people alive as I can, and god damn it, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna do it. I'm like, I'm exhausted. Everyone I know has died. I need to keep going.
We have to keep going.
And it's just like, you can tell that like he does not like Baiduna's character, Dr. Song. Like, you can tell that he's just like, I don't really like you, but we are now comrades.
You cannot die.
I don't like you. I'm gonna protect you with every last ounce of my ability. And you're just like, oh god, Chief Gong. So he was handsome. That's not really important.
But I mean, if you're
a
K-drama fan watching something with Gong Yu in it, and somebody else is standing out as that's how handsome he is. This is what I'm telling you, people.
He's pretty like, you know, if your cast members are Gong Yu and Lee Jun, and Natalia's going, he was pretty good on the eye, you know he was good on the eyes, okay? But no, very, like, the characters were all very compelling, even if like you don't find out what his background is, you don't find out what his situation is. The only people who you find out any situation about are Lee Jun, Baiduna, and Gong Yu's characters. That's the only ones you ever get any background on.
And even Lee Jun's character, it's not like
so
you
little.
have
You get
massive flashbacks. It's just
because you don't learn about it until later on in the series.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the things that like I personally thought, like, because they kind of really set it up in the beginning, was the horror aspect. Like, they really set it up. Now, like, granted, there's no way you could have had the horror in the way that the story went, because like what was perceived as horror was like the Luna defending herself against intruders. So like
they flipped it around on
but I kind of really wished it had like horror, like, and that's a personal thing too. Like I just want horror always, but like when you had that like kind of like moment where it was like, oh, this might be it, but it doesn't happen, and I see why it doesn't happen, because it's obviously she's not a horror. She's just
she's just a child
defending herself.
A child with really crazy eyelids.
Right.
And gills.
She's like kind of a fish child, but fish child,
alien, human hybrid. Because like you get the like from the storytelling, like, because it's a very brief story, but it tells you pretty much that she's a clone that was originally human. You know, like, but then they kept, you know, as they kept killing off these clones, they kept, you know, genetically modifying her.
Yeah, they were pretty aggressive in that. I mean, like, I guess you had to be because of like the race, like, to find things, but like I think that was part of their downfall as well. Not,
Yeah.
them getting killed was like not
yeah, it's
part
like,
of that, but
at the end of the day, when
scientists.
when you're doing something to like be the good guy, but then you have a meat locker full of dead 13-year-old children.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
great.
I don't really wish we got more of it in the show, because I don't like, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think we needed to, but it would have been interesting to kind of see more about that, because you do get this impression that, like, because they were on the moon by themselves, kind of their humanity was like stopped at the door, essentially, like it. And so I think a lot of that stuff happened because they were so isolated. So like, it wasn't even like they were still participating in a human world. It was just them working on it constantly, and that's all they were doing. And I think it bred what they did a lot easier.
You see that a lot in sci-fi and other stuff, just that concept of like scientists who, when let off the leash, they just go right out the deep end.
Isolated.
Yeah, like when it's just scientists all being sciencey together, they fall into the science, the idea of pure science, and you can't have pure science that way, because people but when that's all they have to sound off of each other, it's like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is why the humanities are just as important as STEM.
Yeah, they should have had like
as
a little
displayed
bar,
by the
like,
drama, the silent sea.
Have actors there.
You need some philosophers, some some ethics
the
professors
bar with like Whoopi Goldberg running the bar and like bringing them all back down to earth, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, like, also, like, again, it's, it really ties back to the fact they're in immediate danger, and it's not like, just a want of like to find something, but you're relatively doing okay on Earth or whatever you are at your point. They weren't too. So they probably were under the impression that Earth wouldn't be around even for that long that they had been there. Like, they probably thought like there's a potential that the Earth would be destroyed and they would be there forever, essentially,
Yeah. So Gong Yu's character, his character was really good.
Yeah. He was very like tsundere and, very Captain Task oriented,
very task oriented, very military style. Hierarchy, task oriented, gives commands.
It was nice that they gave him. Yeah, he didn't care about science. Yeah, he's like, "Why are you being curious?" No, we don't need to do that. We need to just get the samples of the mail.
We don't have time for your curiosity.
Stop it! Look what you did.
Yeah, I just want to go back home to my kid who is like suffering.
My sad, terminally ill daughter.
That is the only reason I'm here. That's why I'm getting money. I'm actually, if I didn't have a choice, I wouldn't be a captain. I wouldn't. He's
not even getting money. This is the thing. Is like what he is promised is that if he goes on this, they will raise his water level. So that they can
kind
give
of almost
his
like
daughter
better
medical care.
Essentially, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's at a level and she can't be below the level, and so he has to do what he has to do.
Well,
and that was brings it out of him.
Yeah.
And then
when he saw Luna, he was kind of like,
oh shit.
When confronted with a girl the same age, who looks to be about the same age as his daughter, who clearly may right. Like, the conflict, the internal, and I thought they did his internal conflict really, really well. They didn't give you very much about Gong Yu's character, but they didn't have to, because it wasn't important for the story. And you what Bayduna's character knows. Like, about what is going on in the station. So she wouldn't know anything about this guy, which means that you as the audience are basically, the show is like the POV of her
Yeah,
So
she is the most
she doesn't
knowledgeable
know
and
it,
the highest up
you
essentially
don't
in the
know it.
entire crew.
Well,
Yeah.
plus some bonus knowledge of like what Lee Jun's character is up to.
Oh yeah, like you know,
Yeah,
there's
sure.
to
But in
make the
terms of,
story
like,
make sense. You do need some
government
outside
and
knowledge,
like
but
how scientists like I mean like even like surpassing the other scientists, she's like
Right.
farther up. I do like that like they kind of like kept Gong Yu's character the way that is, and the only person on the entire thing that could do anything to kind of break his kind of like very, you know, stoic facade was the little girl. And I like that they didn't try to play that up with the other characters too. There was a sense of camaraderie, and they definitely were you could feel that they were starting to like really at the very end really kind of be together as one to try to like live, right? But like they didn't try to make relationships that weren't there, and I'm talking about like any relationship, friend,
friendship,
co-worker, comrade,
nothing.
that like side, you know, it's just like I like that they kind of stayed that way, because I like that because how would his character really change that much in like a couple
and again it's a strand of a few hours, right?
It's like
to be honest, it's like
it's
like he wouldn't have that much of a change because he's not getting life-altering information like Baiduna's character is. Like he is not having his worldview completely upended, because like he already thought the world sucked and was inhumane and was shitty, because if it wasn't, why would his daughter be suffering? So like he already thought fuck the world, everything's a piece of shit, so why would he care if they were doing unethical science shit on the moon? He wouldn't. But Bayduna was like, the world, you know, while the world is shit, my sister wasn't. My sister was trying to do her best. My sister was always did the right thing. She just wanted to help people, and then finds out, yeah, your sister may have been like
the actual leader of the like crew to do all this stuff. And like, her world, her world is crashing while Gong Yu's has already been crashed like years before. Like he's like been there, done that, already here. Glad you're joining us now. Like, you know,
like they reference things like, you know, like droughts and all these children dying and this high, you know, child and infant mortality rate. And so when he gets like really upset about, you know, his daughter needing medical care, you'll hear other characters say things like, oh, what family hasn't lost like a kid or two? Like it's, you know,
get over it.
Whatever. Like it's not even a big thing. And it's just so it's
we
like
could definitely
that's the
like
world
play
that they've
this
built
into like an ableism issue, like where like
very
much
much so.
Is like, but my daughter still deserves a life. It doesn't matter.
He legitimately has
like
a disabled daughter who, because of his standing in society, will die unless he does this mission. So he doesn't give a shit about what this mission's about.
Baiduna's character,
he just wants to save his daughter.
Is the type of people who like watched Happiness and like were surprised that these type of peoples exist, or just like just now know that these people exist because of the like pandemic. And I'm like, they've been here all this time.
I've been chronically ill since I was in middle school. These people have existed the entire time.
Been here. Glad you've started to see this. Like this, glad you're well protected. You know,
that was another aspect of her character with Gong Yu's character too. The contrast in that, you know, he's there because he wants a better water rating for his daughter. She has the highest water rating there is. She's unlimited. She's privileged in society. She gives water to stray dogs because she can. And you're thinking like that kind of knowledge to Gong Yu, that would be so like, it's nice. Like that's nice character wise. You're feeding a puppy. That's sweet. But like his daughter's dying because she can't have access to the water that you're feeding to dogs, right? Like that contrast character wise.
And it doesn't make it that she's bad for wanting to figure out and then having like real grief about her sister. She just is very kind of like, I guess, one like focused on one thing and one thing only because she can be, while as like a lot of the other people on this like
in two different realities.
Like even like when we talk about like Ijun's character, like he technically can't be there either, even though he has some sort of power in terms of like he actually does have a lot of knowledge that they probably like help him out a bit more because to keep the silence of that sort of thing. But like she is the privileged person out of everyone in a lot of respect. Doesn't mean that it's not sad and devastating for her sister to have been killed, but like I feel like she just, when she finally figures out about her sister, I think that also kind of helps her kind of revelation of what is actually kind of going on past this incident, because it's pretty clear that like the past 5 years she's dedicated her life to only thinking about what happened to her sister nonstop.
Yeah, and working where she works in like environmental conservation, but it's a very insular sort of world where she just spends all her time with endangered animals and feeding stray dogs and working in a very comfortable, like very nice lab, whereas then it's contrasting the outside where people are having riots outside of, you know, water depositories because they're dying of thirst. And so it's, you know, it's really, I thought that the show was very good at subtly displaying like that her character and the rest of these characters live in vastly different worlds. And so, you know, like the other characters, while it is horrific what her sister was up to, with the exception of the doctor, because she's a doctor, so you know, this would be extremely, the other ones, they are startled but are not fazed, because they already know that shit's gotten real, you know what I mean? Like this is startling, but this is not world altering for them in any way.
And it's nice that like Luna is kind of that like bridge character too, like you know, she kind of helps get a lot of the sense of humanity back into Baiduna's character, and then also even in Gandu's character, because like on the flip side, he is being ravaged by the depression and just the weight of the world being the way that it is, and for his daughter. And I think like Luna's character is there to kind of be that like kind of like glimmer of hope for all of them, as like a unified glimmer of hope, as opposed to kind of constantly keeping separated, because we do like know that this separation, we see it stops us from progressing, like it doesn't help anything. And I think that's like may have been like the little bit of an underlying thing with like Luna's character, not just that she was like the hope because of water and saving the planet, but hope of kind of unity and finding a path to a better outcome for everyone.
So how did you all react to the very, very, very end with Luna just bopping around the surface of the moon?
Like, it makes sense. I don't even know why they thought that she wasn't going to be able to. It was
weird that they were putting stuff on her. I just assumed
I was like, she could clearly like,
because the unit hadn't been turned on, so she had to been she should have been
she was, unless they were figuring, you know, they found the plants at one point. So if maybe they figured that plant was providing enough oxygen for her, because it was a pretty huge, like jungly. I mean, and maybe it's just a matter of it's such a short time span. They just like, did not have time to think about it. It was like,
they're just like, all right, get in this. She needs a
spacesuit. Like, let's just, you know.
And then she's just like, I don't really like wearing this.
Child too. So like, I think I probably would also just throw her in a spaceship too. Like as a. This is a kid.
It's a precaution.
It's so cute when she's like flopping her arms in this like grown-up size suit, and she's like,
which is little moments like that show you that like,
she's a kid.
She's a kid.
Did she kill a couple dudes?
Yes.
Maybe.
I mean,
we didn't like that guy anyway.
She didn't mean it. It wasn't like a personal thing.
Okay. But he was like a
turned out they were
bad dudes.
You know?
So like, I mean,
well, okay, only one of them was a bad dude.
Dude,
the other guy
like on her own for 5 years. Like, how
this is true.
Like,
this is like, I mean, and if you think of, I mean, does she also not age? I guess.
She might,
or was she like 6 or 5? I mean, either way, like you're talking about a kid with no parents, no family, no grown-ups at all.
Honestly,
she's just got to figure stuff out for herself.
She might know that there are other things on the moon that we all don't know. too, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
So she might have been like, I'm primed to defend myself from those things that we just never see because we're not going to know them.
Because this is a very small chunk of time that we are spending in this world that they have created.
It was a really good world. Like they built the world very completely for the little glimpse that we got of it.
Which makes me understand, because it's such a clearly solid, complex world that we still only saw little parts of, but you could tell there was more going on. I understand why so many people are like season 2 when, like, there's more story to tell, and you're like, there is.
But the story to be told
is
a continuation. Like, it would be another story set in this world.
It would be another like trying to find water, or maybe a different mission altogether. So it's not to the moon, it's somewhere else, you know?
Yeah.
Or the Earth itself. Like, we could be actually like focusing on the people on Earth.
Or you get like like the story of Lee Jun going from being just a regular security guard on the moon.
That's what I could see. Like, if they were going to do anything, they're not going to do a continuation. They're going to do a prequel type thing, and maybe that also falls into the scientist thing. I didn't look it up. I don't know how much this cost. Obviously, it took years and years and years to finally get around to being something. So I don't know if that like is also a key. I would say, if we're going by like Netflix standards, I don't think it was popular enough for Netflix to want to continue on to a second season. It was like on the top list for a while, and I think that was because everybody's now like looking at Korean, dramas now, especially if they're Netflix produced because of Squid Game. But I would assume that it's not. I don't know the
I mean, I think the first review that I saw of it compared it to Space Sweepers and said Korea's still trying to figure out how to do sci-fi, and I was like, excuse you.
The first review I saw was against Squid Game, and I was like, they're different shows. Just because there's like a different like language coming out of their mouths does not mean that you can only do one thing and one thing only. Why are you being like this?
You imagine being like, I don't know, Star Wars comes out and everyone's like, but it is not like Friday the 13th. And so I just don't, and you're like, because it's
not the same thing.
A completely different thing? Like, yes, of course it's not.
Like, just because, and like, I like, we didn't talk about like, there's a lot of like PR for this, really fun PR, because Netflix does a lot of that PR. And one of the things that they had, and it's on their the Netflix Korea site, it's not on the Swoon, the English side, and we'll have a playlist of like all the fun stuff that we found. There was like this one like part where they're kind of like discussing like things on Netflix that to like promote, and like Baeduna of course is like on everything on Netflix right now, and they were like then they go to Gong Yu and they're like Squid Game, and he's like, but that's not my show. And I think that's like really like a key, that thing that like a lot of people are like blowing past and not like actually.
He was a cameo on
He was
that
a
show,
cameo,
guys.
and it's actually not that great to be like, oh my god, Gong Yu, Squid Game, when it's like literally just a cameo because of the director, and it's not his show. It's not like he got like an actual like role, like a big role, and like especially when you compare to like other things where he actually has a defined role and is the main character for it. Like, it kind of is not good to be like, well, Squid Game. I mean, like, yes, they played it off, and he like said his like little line and they're all like, it's not his show. He was barely in it. Like, it probably took a day for them to record it, like, and film it, and that's it. And it was like, bye.
And then he was pretty much like, I don't have anything else on Netflix, so rewatch this.
And he was like, when does oh gosh, he was
Stranger Things. When does Stranger Things go back?
And they were all just like discussing like random things that are like Netflix thing. But yeah.
But then Baeduna's like, hey, go watch Sense 8. Hey, go watch Kingdom.
my favorite bit though was them all talking about how Baeduna had a waffle maker on set, and she would constantly just make everyone waffles, and we'd be like, oh, we're about to film a scene, but no one would be around, and all we could smell was waffles, and we knew where everyone was.
Have you watched The Office? There's the waffle, or not, it's the waffle day, or the
grill,
waffle day, where it's like the building hires a stand for one day, and so all the companies in the building can go down and get like waffles with like a bunch of different toppings or stuff, and like Stanley's like, it's waffle day, and it's like his like day of the year. That's all I could think of. There's some like really great like behind the scenes moments too. You could tell that they had so much fun. And Ijun and I don't have my notes up again. Ijun and
Kim Sun Young
are so good together.
Yes,
So good together.
I just love when they were like, they're like, they're like, Sun Young treats Lee Jun like different than everyone else. Like when she greets everyone else, she'll be like, oh hey, and then as soon as she sees June, she's like, oh hello June.
And
like,
he's like very quiet too. Like you can tell he was kind of like, everybody was big personality, and he's not. He's also the one who was like into aliens and stuff. He was like the one who's into all this stuff or whatever. But you could tell like when she's around, he was more active and more like talkative, and like really had a great like relationship.
She really seems like the sort of person that can make people feel really comfortable around.
Oh my gosh. There's like that one part in one of the things where she was they were asking her about like if she liked theater or movies or dramas better. And she's like, I like theater, but like dramas give me money.
Relatable.
Oh my gosh.
Relatable.
And they also talk about like how like heavy the suits were, and like a lot of the times, you know, to like get the effect, they would be like doing the weird walks, and so they got good at doing the weird walks. Like if you watch it, there's no way they didn't have like the best time. And I think Bae Doona and Gong Yoo are so good at being so fun on set that it kind of transferred to everybody being just like going crazy and just having fun.
I feel like this probably won't be the last we see of the two of them in a Netflix show.
No.
I feel like in the future there may be a reunion. I feel like this it's a money-making combination. Oops, sorry.
Like I've seen Kim Sun Young in a lot of stuff, and I always love her. I just want to see a heck ton of her. Like she's
Yes.
Because she's not like in main characters too. Like this is, I think, is one of the ones that like I can think of off the top of my head that I could say for sure I would squarely put her as a main character, even though they still don't like specifically say that she's there for all of it. Like she's, you know, she's one of the main lasting people too. Like, but she's also just there in general. Like you see her a lot with lines, but she was like in Because This Is My First Life as the mom, and like she was really great in that. And I just like always really liked her characters because she does like funny roles and does a lot of rom-com stuff, but I think like this role was like a fun thing to see her do differently. Like for me personally, she might have done roles like this that I'm not aware of, but
I also want to look up Lee Moo Sang. I want to watch more of his stuff because he was great.
Yeah, he did really well.
He's got quite a repertoire.
He does. And watching them all in the behind the scenes stuff, like they were just a delight. Just delightful.
Lee Moo Sang is going to be on 39, which I know is going to show that like everybody on this podcast is going to like. It's the one with the trio. They're the older friends, 30 to 40s.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a good one.
We like us a female-led drama, so
with like the friendship.
Females over 20 too.
Adults.
Yeah.
We like a good show with adults doing adult things, and when I say adult things, I don't mean that. I mean just like regular, normal adult things, not adult
being
things.
grown-ups.
Yes,
and
thank
we're
you.
obviously going to be seeing more Kim Chia. There's no way that she's not going to continue her path
for sure.
in acting. She was just so good, and I know that like there are some parts that would have been stunt double just because she is so young. She really is like young enough that like a lot of the stuff that
she's 13
she did
like,
would not have been like okay on like, you know, standards, right?
Yeah, like those were not her bodies in the bags. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and like there's a couple times when she's like rolling around like heavily on stuff. That's not her. If you see her back, it's not her.
It's a stunt. It's a stunt.
It has
double.
to be.
Yeah.
She's again 13 years old. She's a child, you know.
Legally that is not allowed.
But the way that she is with her face acting, like right now, and the way that she can do stuff with her eyes and just make you believe what she's saying without her actually speaking, I think it just like proves that she's going to continue being so good. And she was good in Kingdom. I'm pretty sure we even talked about how we really liked her as the younger version.
Oh yeah.
I just discovered, this is kind of fun. So the girl who plays, she looked familiar and I couldn't figure out why. The girl who plays his daughter, his like sick daughter. Do you remember the show King Eternal Monarch?
Yeah.
Familiar.
Where there was the little boy who was like mystical and had like the yo-yo. That was her. She was the little boy.
Oh. Mystical yo-yo boy.
Mystical yo-yo boy.
Another example of a show that doesn't really tell you everything that's going on. But you just have to
Sorry, the first comment on
that one really doesn't
Asian
tell
Wiki
you.
Page, the first comment on the page is, Yo-Yo Boy was a she. This is the best lie I've encountered in my whole life.
So good.
They got us. They got us.
Good.
If you dig sci-fi, give it a shot.
You're gonna love it. It gets 2 thumbs up from old Natalia. I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it delivered everything it promised it was going to deliver.
I would recommend a binge if you're that type. If you are a binge type, possibly try to binge it, because I can't imagine.
It does kind of keep on like its momentum into the other episodes, so that like alone I think would be.
It has like a real A&E mini series arc vibe to it. Like you want to watch the whole thing at once, you know? I couldn't imagine this. Like if you had to wait a week for the next episode, I'd be like,
one episode a week.
No,
like I didn't watch it all at once just because I didn't have time to sit, right? But still it was like a couple episodes, like 2-3 episodes at a time. It wasn't, or
the length of the episodes really help. I think there even might be one episode that's like even like shorter than the rest too. Like I don't think they even got up to 40 minutes on it. So that does help. It isn't as long as you kind of are expecting. Even when you think of 8 hours, it's like not 8 hours. It's like what? Maybe 5.5, 6 hours tops, if I'm thinking.
So it's like two long movies.
Yeah.
Like you can watch it over a weekend. You'll be fine if you don't binge. Don't worry. It's good. It's good.
If you like Bayduna and Gong Yu, like,
have we got a treat? Have we got a treat? Because we have 2 whole episodes.
And there may be
2 whole episodes about them.
An episode coming soon with someone.
Maybe if you keep tuned to the Noonas.
Maybe
there may be another episode in a couple weeks, perhaps, that may be of interest to you.
Maybe a thing you would want to know.
But anyway, we have an episode about Bayduna. We have an episode of Gong Yu. And those episodes will be linked in the blog posts.
And we'll also link the Kingdom Ashen.
And we have the Kingdom episode that has Bayduna in it, so we will link that. Oh, well, you know what? Hell, even though it wasn't a show, we'll link the friggin' Squid. We have a Squid Game episode too. We'll link that too. Why not? Why not?
You
can find all those on the post on CertifiedNoonas.com, because all of our episodes have a post with all the links to everything we talk about and the time codes all on there. Beautifully, wonderfully done by our very own in-house amazing Jessie. She does that for us. She's wonderful. Thank you, Jessie. Props.
I don't know if I'm wonderful, but I'm okay. I'm solidly okay.
No, you are wonderful.
Hey, you get you get it done.
We do our best. And, if you want to, like, discuss more about this, like, you're like, oh, I really wish I could discuss more about this episode on the Silent Sea. I really want to share all my ideas. We have a Discord server where all of this you can do that. You can come and just like discuss it, and we will discuss it back with you. We love our Discord server. It's great. But of course we are also reachable on Twitter and Instagram. Mostly we're on all the social medias, but it's mostly Twitter, Instagram. It's always at Certified Noonas. One word. That's us. You can listen to us pretty much everywhere podcasts can be found, but also on our website, CertifiedNoonas.com, as we said. And of course, if you want to support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/CertifiedNoonas and become an official member of the Certified Found family. They are the wonderful people who basically keep the lights on, as it were, for this little podcast that's been going on for a couple years now. They're great. We love them. We have some fun stuff planned. Jessie and I were doing a few experiments today, so we got some secrets. We'll tell you more about it over on the Patreon at some point. We've been doing some stuff. We got some stuff in the works for our found family. Anyway, we hope you have a fantastic week. You may check out some fun sci-fi, perhaps, on the old Netflix. You wash your hands, you wear a mask, stay safe, and of course, keep enjoying Asian entertainment. Bye.
Bye.